today we're going to do Sikhism. This divides nicely into 5 sections. Section 1, we're going to look at beliefs and comparisons between Sikhism and Buddhism and Hinduism that we already covered, involving ideas about death and ideas about the soul. The second is about God, is about the idea of God and the concept of God in Sikhism, again as opposed to in Hinduism and Buddhism, and it makes a nice link segue into the monotheistic religions of the Abrahamic traditions that we're going to move on to next week. Then I'm going to tell you a little story, and then we'll go through some things that Sikhs definitely don't do, and then I'm going to talk about just the general sort of what have we learned about Indian religions, and that's to finish. So, section 1, beliefs. So, we had these ideas about karma and rebirth, reincarnation, and Atman and Nataman. These are all things we've covered before. The idea in Sikhism, we talk about Jiva. This is God, right? I'm using white as a sort of God colour. This is God, Waheguru. God is like formless, it isn't anything in particular, and this is godliness. Now in Hinduism, the Atman, the soul, came from God and was incarnated, and then at death, the container breaks and the soul goes into a new container. In Sikhism, this isn't the same. So in Sikhism, God creates Jiva, which is the soul. We have God, and God creates the soul, which is of a different thing. Now, Sikhs also believe in reincarnation. There's different varieties of beliefs, but generally reincarnation is based on whether you live good or bad deeds in your life and you're reincarnated. Again, the point of a good Sikh life is to live in such a way that you escape being reincarnated over again. And the ultimate goal is to merge with Waheguru, with God, right? So although Jiva isn't made of God, Jiva merges with God at death and becomes part of the one thing. So karma, karma in Hinduism was like a point system and you cash them in. Karma in Buddhism was a more immediate, make the world a better place because you have to live in it. Karma in Sikhism is more an idea of the grace of God. It is by God's grace that you're reincarnated or not. And it is by pleasing God, by doing your duty as a good Sikh, that you gain a good reincarnation or not. So karma, the word is still used in Sikhism, but the idea is slightly different. One other interesting thing. So this is Jiva, this is a human soul. However, according to Sikhism, when God created the universe, God didn't just create humans on Earth. We aren't the only beings, so there are other types of beings on other planets, and they're doing their other things too. So this is not a kooky alien life forms thing. This is like the universe is massive, humans are not that important, and God can create other planets with life on, and that is consistent with belief. So there are other kinds of souls and things, but the point of life is still to merge with God at the end of life. God in Sikhism is you can't emphasize enough the oneness of God. There is only one God in Sikhism, often called Waheguru, which means wonderful teacher, but also called Ik Onkar, which is the one constant. I've got a quotation to read you from the Guru Granth Sahib, which is the holy book. This is the beginning. It's called the Mool Mantar. It says, there is but one all-pervading spirit, and truth is its name. It exists in all creation. It does not fear. It does not hate. It is timeless and universal and self-existent. You will come to know it through seeking knowledge and learning. That's really what God is about. So knowledge and learning is important to Sikhs, but also this idea that God is all-loving, is omnipotent, God is everywhere. God is incredibly important. God is everything in Sikhism, right? The Ik Onkar, this one God. Okay, so God is omnipotent. God has power over everything. God is unseeable. That doesn't mean that God is wholly unknowable, but it means that God can't be known through human experience. You have to do moral things to understand the nature of God. You have to live a good life to understand the nature of God, to come to know God as the all-loving and all-pervading spirit that God is. God is immanent, which means that God is utterly close to us. Like God pervades all of our lives, and God is right near you. Okay. God is pure spirit. It's not some sort of metaphysical physicality. God is just spirit and is everywhere. God is not male or female. It's often referred to as male just because there aren't enough non-gendered pronouns in the world. But there's no notion that God is male or female, or that God has any one feature over another. Everything is within God, and that's all a good thing. Importantly, there are no avatars of God like in Hinduism. God can't visit Earth like in Christianity. God doesn't reproduce. God doesn't fear or hate. That's really important, because that means that God is fearless, right? And God is hateless. So God is all loving. I keep making this sign with my fingers. I always do when I talk about Sikhism, because God, you can think of God as a circle. In fact, symbolically, that's often done in Sikhism. The unending circle and the perfect unity of the circle. This is God, because God extends equally in all directions, because God is everywhere, and God is without beginning and without end. That's the eternity of God. You can probably think of some more aspects of that analogy, but yeah, God is a good way of remembering God in Sikhism. There's a Sikh living in Mecca and sitting down, just chilling out, with his feet pointing towards the Kaaba, which is the important black building where apparently the first mosque was, that Abraham built, and Adam built. We'll get to this in Islam. The holiest building in Islam, and it's towards the Kaaba. That's the direction is called Qibla. That's the direction in which Muslims still pray. And so this Sikh was sitting with his feet pointed towards the Kaaba. That could seem to be really disrespectful. So a Muslim comes and says to this Sikh, "Hey, you're pointing your feet at the Kaaba. That's not really okay, because that's really disrespectful." And the Sikh's like, "Well, why?" And the Muslim says, "Well, you're pointing your feet towards the Kaaba. That's God. You're pointing your feet towards God. That you can't point the soles of your feet towards God. That's really disrespectful." And the Sikh says, "So show me a direction where God isn't." And that's a good story, because that eternal unendingness of God means that God is everywhere in every direction. And the idea of saying that God is more in one place than another would be called superstition. So Sikhism has this belief that there are some things that God really cares about. God cares about love, He cares about compassion, He cares about humanity, He cares about human beings, and He cares about love. God doesn't care about which side of the bed you get out of. God doesn't care about whether you fast for a certain amount of time. In Sikhism, all of that gets laid to one side, and we've got this idea of no superstition. So there's no fasting in Sikhism, and there's no pilgrimage, which is a big deal, because Sikhism, it's spread around the same places that Islam spread around, and those sorts of things are fundamental to Islam. Whereas in Sikhism, it was much more of a blank slate, and much more just be nice to everyone all the time, regardless, and anything else you don't really have to worry about, because God won't. Sikhism is a really young religion. It's only 500-600 years old, really young. And actually, since the very, very beginning of Sikhism, there have been women leading prayer. Women and men are of equal standing in Sikhism. One of the most important aspects of the Gurdwara, the Sikh place of worship, is what's called the langar, which is a massive kitchen canteen, and everyone is welcome to come and eat there. If there's a Gurdwara near you, you can go and eat there yourself. People of every faith and religion are welcomed, every creed and colour are welcomed. The food served is always vegetarian, not because Sikhs are themselves vegetarian, although they are banned from eating meat slaughtered in a ritual way. Again, that's the banning of superstition. But they serve vegetarian food so that no one can be offended. So Hindus and Muslims and Sikhs, Christians, Jews, everyone can eat together because it's vegetarian and no one's got issues with vegetables. So one of the things that you can do as a Sikh, and most Sikhs will do at some point, is serving food in the langar. Now, the important thing about the langar is everybody sits on the floor. That means nobody's higher up than anybody else. The kings and the paupers, the Muslims, the Sikhs, the Jews, the Christians, the mayor of the town can come. Everybody sits on the same level and eats the same food together. It's a symbol of togetherness and community and equality. And this idea of the equality of men and women is much more explicitly stated in Sikhism. So women can lead worship, there's no problem there. The final thing that's really important in Sikhism to remember is that what God really does care about is compassion. We've looked at 3 of the major world religions, all 3 Indian religions: Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism. Now, all 3 of them conclude that the thing that you should do in your life is love. Here's how they reach their conclusions. Hindus say they have this animistic belief that God, Brahman, is part of everything. Every living thing has got a part of Brahman in it in the form of Atman. So to behave lovingly to anybody else is to behave lovingly to God. And it's being godlike to be loving. You also have reincarnation, so that it is a bad idea to be bad to other people or bad to animals. In India, though, historically, there was the caste system. If you are born, poor or disabled, this is something that you've earned from living a bad life in your previous existence. But that's really on the way out in India, and certainly most modern Hindus that you would see in other countries outside of India and outside of like really intense cultural expressions of Hinduism, tends to be that everyone has got Atman, and so everyone is worthy of love. So for Hindus, the point of life is to collect good karma. One of the ways to do that is through worshipping God, which is through good acts and kindness towards other people and towards animals. So that's love, why one should love all the time as a Hindu. Now in Buddhism, we've got this different notion of karma. So you aren't trying to collect points and you don't have God. But the conclusion is still love, always, always love. Because you have to live in the world, and acts of love and acts of kindness and being good to other people means they'll also be good to you, and they'll be good to other people in return, and paying forward, which makes the world a better place, which makes it a better place to live in, which means there is less suffering, and that overall is a good thing, and that's karma in Buddhism. So the conclusion of Buddhism is love, always love. In Sikhism, acts of love are expressions of the grace of God. You become more like God through behaving in a loving manner, and that readies you for merging with God at the end of your cycles of reincarnation. The idea of total equality in Sikhism means that you should love unconditionally. Everybody is the same, and so everybody should be loved. In Hinduism, everyone has Atman within them, so you should love everybody. In Buddhism, everybody is just as much of an illusion in the world as you, and you all have to live in this illusion, so you should love everybody indiscriminately. In Sikhism, everyone is equal, and showing love is showing the grace of God, so you should love everyone indiscriminately. So in conclusion, according to all 3 of the major Indian religions, you should love. Behave in a loving way, be good to people, be nice to people. This is a theme we're going to see coming up again. Next week, we're going to move into the Abrahamic religions. These are going to be much more familiar to everybody in the West. We'll start with Judaism because we'll work in chronological order. We'll go through Judaism and then into Christianity and then finally Islam, and then I'll do maybe a bonus video at the end. Make sure that you click subscribe. It makes me look popular and cool. I am. And please sponsor me on my Patreon account. Share the video. That would be really nice. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for watching. Thanks for sticking with me. Here is Sikhism and it's done. Farewell. Never mix 2 colours of Play-Doh.